It's your friendly neighborhood soup lady here, Caroline Wright. I'm going to make with you today one of my favorite soups. These are all my favorite soups, but this one's my Jamaican pumpkin and red pea soup. It's just like a fun fantasy blend of things that grow readily in Jamaica, and I just wanted to lift all those flavors and turn it into a cool soup. In my mind, it's kind of like a sort of creamy zuppa toscana for all you Olive Garden fans out there. It just is like hearty and delicious and cozy and surprising. So all it is we make this like sort of jerk seasoning flavor base from a yellow onion, a whole bunch of scallions, a jalapeno, though you could use a Scotch bonnet or a habanero if you want to go like authentic. A lot of ginger, some garlic, some allspice and cinnamon, really beautiful, and the leaves from a small bunch of thyme and some water. That's like the flavor base, and it turns into this. You like blend it up in a blender. Really delicious and simple and easy. And then it's followed up by some collards that we've sliced, some carrot that I slice into nice big chunks too. And this is half of a kabocha or a calabasa or a Hubbard. Those are the kind of pumpkin that grow readily in Jamaica. So if you don't know how to break them down, I will show you at the end of the video, just like sort of in one of your favorite movies. At the end, after the credits would roll, I will show you how to break it down if you'd like. All right, so that's what we have in this guy, and it's finished with some lime juice and some coconut cream. So what we do is we melt some coconut oil. And that's how we get started. And then we have this flavor base that we made. Again, it's a Jamaican seasoning base with all those lovely flavors, warming spices and scallions. And if you want to be authentic about it, you should make it kind of spicy. I just used a jalapeno, but a habanero or a Scotch bonnet would work well. So I'm just going to put this in here and cook it a little bit until like sort of the raw flavor goes out of it and it thickens a little bit, because I did blend it with water and you sort of want to cook the water out of it. And you season that generously with salt. There's already pepper in the mix, and we can get more pepper in there in the end. So while this cooks down a little bit, we're just wanting to get the water out of there. And as this is cooking down, I will show you how I process the veggies. This is that squash that I told you about. I cut it into comically large pieces because we're pairing it with the red peas, with the beans for the cooking time. So you want to make sure they'll cook down too much. They'll break apart if they're not so large. And then these are the collard greens, which I just took off the hard stems on either side. I just cut on either side of the large stem piece and cut them into 1-inch pieces. So that's those. And then I have our carrots, which I peeled and cut into large chunks. One of my favorite things about my vegan soup recipes is that I keep the veggies really, really large, because then it's kind of like something super satisfying to dig your spoon into. It's really lovely. All of the water pretty much is cooked out of it. It's leaving a trace on the bottom of the pan. That's how you know that it's nice and thick. And so now what we do is we just add the rest of our ingredients here. We've got the peas that have been soaked overnight. And always, if you forget, every single one of my recipes can be made in the Instant Pot. We've got those peas. Now we're going to add our pieces of squash, our sliced greens, our carrots, and our water. You already know all of my soups are water-based. We'll season it with some salt and pepper. So all we do is we bring it to a boil, and then we uncover it and simmer until the beans are tender. All right, so here we are. It's not the most appealing color, I'll admit. It's kind of gray, but we'll fix that in just a second. So we are just looking for these beans to be tender, and of course everything else is tender too. I didn't stir it too much because I wanted these pieces of pumpkin to stay intact. Or as best as I can, but really the beans is what we're looking for. So what we do is we finish it with some coconut cream. But also what you can do if you want to be fancy about it, you can plate this at this stage. You can like plate it. You can put it into bowls. And then you can pour the coconut cream individually into the bowls, divide them among the bowls, and it's like very fancy looking. So we have the coconut cream that goes in. And when the coconut cream goes in, you can see the separation of like what was that really flavorful flavor base. I can see partly of like the scallion and stuff. Okay, so this is coconut sugar, just to keep on theme. It's a lovely addition. It's not necessary if you're like completely avoiding sugar, but I just think it brings the balance. And then this is lime juice. And then season it to taste after that for your taste. And now I'm gonna make myself a nice little bowl. These soups are a little tricky. These soups, you have to make sure you scoop from the bottom of the pan. I'm speaking from experience of ladling quarts of this. So you get everything, like you get the goodness of all the beans and the greens, everything gets in there. And you gotta make sure you get a nice piece of squash. Again, I realize they're comically large. Okay. Really good. This recipe for my Jamaican pumpkin and pea soup is in my Soup Club cookbook. You can find it online. I think you can find it at secondhand stores at this point. But if you do, send me an email through my Soup Club cookbook or my Slurp Soup Club websites, and I will send you a signed book plate. Thank you so much for following along here. I hope you'll click like and subscribe on YouTube and follow me on Instagram at Slurp Soup Club. See you next week. So if you've never worked with one before, kabocha squash can be kind of intimidating. I do like to peel it because I find that the skin doesn't really break down like a butternut squash or an acorn squash would. So all I've done, and this is already hard work, I know, but I like to cut off the top and the bottom of the squash just as carefully as you can, just to cut off a little sliver so you have this nice flat surface. And then I, lay it down, and then I cut it in half. All I've done is scraped out the seeds, kind of like, a jack-o'-lantern situation. I'm sure you've done it for some other fall squash. But the peeling of the squash is actually a harder part. Often I do it when it's like, still intact. I've just cut off the top and the bottom. And then I just connect, easier said than done. I just connect the dots, like connect this side to this side with my peeler. And the trick of it, honestly, is somewhat having a good peeler. This is the kind of peeler I like. It's a Y peeler, and you don't have to grip it too hard, and you just sort of go in small pieces, and you don't dig too deep, because if you do, it'll just get stuck. But you just keep doing that until all of the peel is gone. Sometimes you'll just get a groove, however you do it. Actually moving quickly is better than not. It makes a little bit of a mess. So I do this over a paper bag for compost or something like that. And then I get it all the way down below that sort of pale green layer. Also, kabocha come in red varieties as well. But in place of this, like I said, you could use a Hubbard or a Calabasa, either one. Those are sort of more traditional. And after I've gotten all of the thick green peel off, sometimes this is like a little indentation, so I sometimes have to just cut it off. They're just going everywhere. Such a mess. All right, that looks good to me. Set those aside on my board. And I'll just cut this little bit off. There we go. Just shave it off. And now all I'm going to do is cut it into very large pieces. And they're far, far larger than bite size. So don't be fooled. Because then it's better to break them apart on the other end of the cooking as opposed to them cooking completely away while the beans are cooking. So I do like 3-inch pieces, which in the case of this squash, because it's a little bit on the smaller side, I do about in thirds, and it's really dependent on the squash. I also consider that this top part is much, much thinner than this bottom part. So either I would cut that off because that would not cook, it'll just cook away. I'll cut that off, and then I would cut it probably this into 2 pieces. And I don't cut it, I just think it's prettier to cut it on an angle. And also it's sort of to keep the same thickness in both pieces. Because again, this side is thinner than this side. So I want some of the thickness of each of the sides to be in each piece. So there we go. Odd shaped pieces, but it's more fun, I can guarantee you, for the eater on the other side to eat it that way. Well, so I'm cutting it like this because this is thicker here, and to keep that side thinner, it's more uniform. Anyway, so there we go. That's what goes into your soup.